Just popped into the select board.
I did that at CPTC.
what it is?
Went and sat up front, said what?
Oh, I saw Greg coming in right in front of me.
How are we doing up there?
I
Five.
just wanted to see who was participating, so we're
Okay.
showing the non-video participants
yeah,
right now
that's
in the
great.
gallery.
So we have five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can start in a minute.
Nancy would pass the number.
I will do that.
Yes, you do.
Everybody else comes. All right. We're recording.
Yeah, let me. How did you get?
What did you vote?
Oh, you didn't want.
Everybody at the bottom, what would you want?
It's nice to have a gallery.
You want the gallery?
Yeah,
Okay.
camera doesn't seem to be on.
Oh, well.
We're recording. That's all that's happening.
Camera was on earlier.
Yeah, right, and you switch it to the gallery.
Oh, Karen, your thing wasn't
Yeah,
in.
but I didn't turn off the.
It's probably in the select board one.
I can't go back in there, I already embarrassed myself, but
Oh,
it's all right.
sorry.
Okay,
You only have one.
no worries. As far as I know.
Okay, there it is. Yep, yep, we should also be John.
I'll be John.
We'll be good, we're off.
Right.
We're off. Right? That's the room view.
Okay, I call about January 8th, so Killam School Building Committee meeting to order.
That's.
That's next door. So I'm gonna close the door.
It's right over with us.
There's a lot of meetings.
Amazing.
We'll just, we will do a roll call vote because we have, people online. Kurt won't be here today. Sarah may not be here today. So Ed,
Here.
Karen?
Here.
John, who's not here at the moment. Greg?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
Nancy? Here. And Carla are here. Thank you, everyone. Because there's so many people in, present, we could just go around and introduce ourselves. Jenny, do you want to start?
Sure, I'm Jenny Kadiamaki, project manager for La Valley Brinsinger.
The Sherwood architect.
Mike Carroll, was project manager, Colliers.
I'm Bill Bullock with RMLD.
Karen Herrick, select board.
Rick Stepler, building committee.
Lindsay Fulton, Killam principal. Nancy Toomey, building committee.
Pat Tompkins, building committee.
Jane Wellman, director of operations.
Matt Cornell is acting town manager.
And we have Joe Huggins online, we have Susanna Yoon, who's with Colliers, our project manager, Husky superintendent, Jackie, our admin assistant, Sharon Engstrom. Ed. Making more people that thank you, everybody, for coming. It's nice to see so many people in person. We will start with school member reports, if there are any. Nobody has
None for me, Carla.
one? Okay, I'm just gonna say a couple of things. Tomorrow, we are having a kickoff meeting with the MSBA. That's at 9:30. There will be a few of us in that meeting. There is a Killam community meeting, which will be this Thursday, the 11th, from 5:15 to 6:45. It's gonna be at the Killam School cafeteria. We would love for all the building committee members to be there if you are able. LBA had a very similar type of meeting for the teachers last Thursday, which was really a great meeting. I think we got a lot of good information from it. They're looking to get to know the community, and the teachers, so they can build a school that more reflects what our goals are and meets our needs. And then the executive team, now that we have LBA on with us, they have hit the ground running. They started well before the holidays, which was fabulous. And we decided that we were gonna have executive team meetings every other week and have these meetings every other week, opposite weeks. So that's kind of exciting to see how things are rolling out fast and furious. We are going to move to LBA's amendments. We have 5 amendments that Susanna is going to speak about.
Thanks, Carla, and good evening, everyone. So I'm sure you've all seen the packet that Jackie sent out, which included LBA's amendments 1 through 5. Those included they're for land surveying, traffic engineering consulting services, hazardous materials consulting, phase 1 ESA and soil sampling, and geotechnical services. So these amendments, the way that it was written into their contract, it's not additional money. We had already allocated funds for that within their original base contract, which was the $850,000. So this was sent over just before the holidays, and Fidel had reviewed, as well as Collier's, and signed off on amendments 1 through 5. So we are just showing it to the group for the future. Any amendments that is a change to the contract will be brought to the SBC prior to any sign-offs. So just letting everybody be aware of these 5 amendments.
We'll be voting on them next meeting. We'll take a vote. Just wanted to let everybody have a look at it. Yeah.
One quick question, I think you said that these were part of the contract, but they're additional funds above and beyond the contract, so I think, I don't know if you misspoke on that, or if I misunderstood something. I don't know why.
I can answer that if you'd like.
Sure.
Having, yes, they are not part of the 850 for the architect, but they are part of your allocated funds for this part of the job.
Okay.
As you had put together probably about around $500,000 worth of site and other inspection type stuff, which was very smart. And we're taking advantage of that and getting it going.
So these are items that are typically expected from the design team, but they're not part of the quote unquote base services. That's why they're.
Correct, they are
That's why
they're part of
separate.
reimbursable
Right.
services. Which is,
So usually they happen later, is that the case?
Well, so usually, I would say usually we don't get 5, I'll say right off the bat, but I think we are jumping right in. But I think none of these were unexpected. They were all expected services. It's all stuff to do, having to do with actually, the land surveying, the traffic. It's all stuff that they need to be able to understand the project and make sure the design is the right project. So.
And these all fall within the projected budget.
Correct.
These were part of the $2.2 million. Remember, we did the whole feasibility study. It was part of the $2.2 million. We had already, under testing and other services, we just had pulled them out. So they're already accounted for.
Okay.
they're probably less in general than what you had allocated, which is probably why you do that.
Questions though? Great. So like I said, next meeting, we'll take a vote on it, even though they are signed off. No other questions? So we will move on to LBA designer update.
Great. I can share my screen so everyone online can see. I don't know how to go into presentation mode, so probably wise just to not try to mess with that. This will do. Okay, so so excited to be here today. Last time when LBA was here, I was homesick, so joined from the screen. So it's great to be in the same room with you all and put some faces to names. So today we're basically doing an update of what this is the format that we'll do for each of every time that we come to the SBC, we'll give an update of what we've done in the last 2 weeks. We'll show you some of our work product and what we've learned. We'll report back, and then we'll let you know what we're doing for the next 2 weeks. So what we've done since we were engaged in early December, mid-December, is we have developed a detailed schedule and work plan for the whole feasibility study and schematic design. We've identified submittal dates, meeting dates, we've developed a detailed work plan for the educational visioning, which is a big piece of what we're doing right off the bat. We're starting on Wednesday. We have already held one project charter workshop, as Carla said, that was with the Killam staff. And we're doing another one on Thursday with the whole community of Reading and also open to the Killam community. We have now engaged these additional consultants that you just heard about. We've engaged all our basic services consultants. So those are consultants that we don't have in-house that are under those basic services, like the structural engineer, the civil engineer, the landscape architect. All of that team is signed up and on board. And we've also received some existing conditions, drawings and documents from the town. Thank you. And then I'm going to share kind of a very broad overview schedule of the whole project, like until move-in. And then Lee will talk a little bit about a more detailed work plan. So we are here in 2024. And this is just broken up by like large phase. So we're starting the feasibility study now. We'll be finishing the feasibility study phase in August. But there's an interim submission, PDP submission, which I said I was going to make a note about what the PDP means.
I wrote it. Oh,
It's the program.
Program.
And it's the very, when we zoom in on it, you'll see it'll make a little more sense, but these are the steps for the MSBA.
And then at the end of August, we'll have the PSR submission, the preferred schematic report. Got that one. Okay. It's a lot of TLAs. That's just a submission to the MSBA. There's a review process as well. Then we'll do the schematic design phase starting in September 2024 through February 2025. And that is basically leading up to this April 30th MSBA board approval, which is very key. It's the end of the feasibility and schematic design phase. And then that sets us up for the town vote, which will be in May. I don't think we have a date for that. May 2025, which we don't have a date for yet.
This is the most, so if I may, this is the most, it's not really ambitious, but it is the most streamlined or efficient kind of approach. You can always go slower. You can always go back. You can probably even slow things down in the beginning and still hit your move-in at the very end. But there are so many things to do, especially with the MSBA and all the submittals. There's so much review time and there's so much back and forth that we have to go through. Some of you have been through this process. And so talking with Colliers, Mike and Susanna, we focused on the idea of the spring 2025 as your bond vote, as being our first real goal. And And then went backwards and tried to set up feasibility and all of the tasks required to meet that goal. It's very feasible, especially since you're an efficient group. You have one site, one building and all of that. It's quite feasible. It's less complicated than some, but everything's complicated in the real world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so an election will be past our normal electoral election, it would be a special election. Sorry.
Right, and things like that are why we're putting this on here for you.
Yeah.
Because that April 30th MSBA approval, that is set by the MSBA, and we have no control over it. And you can't, well, I suppose a person could take a vote before that approval, but the risk is not something that the town would want to do, but you can take it the day after.
Yeah, actually,
Right.
Mike just recently had a town that the MSBA approved it and 6 days later they voted. So,
And that's because you'll have so many months to prepare for it while the MSBA is reviewing it and setting this up. There's literally months there where you're really focused on just the town and not doing too much with the MSBA.
maybe just one other thing on that approval part is we're working hand in hand with the MSBA team. And we're submitting it to them at the beginning of that approval part, that bar. And the approval comes from the board, and obviously it has to go to the board has to vote on it. But for it to get to the board, it's gone through a lot of people's hands already. And if there's no red flags, usually the board is, relatively a rubber stamp. They'll have questions, but it's not often that if it's gotten through the whole team of the MSBA, that then you have a stop at the board, so. The expectation is that we're working with them open and good communication, and if there's an issue, we're gonna know about it way in advance of that board.
Couple other things. I know you all have different experience with this, so I'd like to somehow make it really simple. The PDP, this first part, May 20th, it's really about our initial understanding, our programming, our visioning, our community meetings, all those kinds of things. And even though we have some pricing for some alternatives, these are box-like alternatives, this different square foot sizes. And they're kind of general that way, and you're still selecting. So we give it to the MSBA, they see kind of the general scope of all of it, who you are. Even when we hand it into the MSBA, we keep working no matter what, because there's no way for us to do the work with you without just continuing working. And so we're back and forth with them and with you, but we never stop. Just want you to know that. The PSR is really the end of the feasibility study. And because it says preferred schematic, what that means is that we've gone through a whole other phase of looking at building options on that site. 1-story, 2-story renovation, 3-story, all those kinds of things. And even done a much more advanced kind of estimate of them. And that includes, we'll have included what kind of system it is. We'll kind of know how we're building it a bit, or, all those kinds of things. We'll have narratives from all of our consultants. And so at the end of the PSR, when we hand that in, and remember how many months away is that?
End of August.
So we have 8 months, or so. The idea is at that point, you probably have a preferred scheme. So there's plenty of time, but there's also plenty for us to do for you to get to that point. And you'll have lots of criteria to decide upon. Once we hand that in, we can keep moving because schematic design is about one option. You can always modify, as Mike likes to say, but when you did say once that maybe it's not 2 stories, it's 3 stories, I said, no, probably not.
Too much of it.
The MSBA loves a linear process and they don't like any tricks. And so will be a very linear process, and hopefully together we make really good decisions based on real good information, and that's how everybody likes it there. But we have time to do it. Go ahead, Mike.
Ed has his hand raised.
Ed, you have a question?
Ed.
Yeah, thanks. Just right before you were talking, Leah, put my hand up, so thanks for all that. That was actually helpful. But my question was kind of back to Karen's point about the special election. And maybe this is more of a town question, too, but does, but I'd like to get, have you guys weigh in as well. But, so does that really matter for us that it's a special election? I mean, does it, I mean, I know there's a cost to it, but isn't that, fine for us to be, as a special election, it's actually a kind of a one issue thing anyways? Just curious as far as what folks think about that.
I imagine we can't be the only town doing this, because if the MSBA doesn't move, everyone else has to, right? Okay.
It is, and I think, I've had discussions with different districts, and some say, no, we have to have it at town meeting, we have to do that. Others say, just like Ed just said, no, we want to focus on the school and the school only and have its own election. And I think, timing wise here, we have a meeting with the MSBA tomorrow. Might be a great question to talk to them about a little bit, just to kind of maybe get their feedback on that. But I think ultimately, I don't know that we can tighten our schedule up any tighter than it already is right now. I think Lee kind of alluded to that already. It's maybe a little aggressive as is. So if it's May is probably the soonest that we'd be ready, I think, to really come forward. If we want to take a little bit longer, I think that would be the question I would have for the town, is that many towns have special elections, but to have a special election, a month after the town meeting, is that going to raise questions? And I think there's a real logical reason for it. You can see the schedule, but does it need to be a little bit further apart? Maybe.
If all else fails, you end up having it in, God forbid, in the fall or something. But it is a lot of time, and time is money, and schedule. I would recommend from the past, like the same thing for you, is that someone who's very involved in the town and these meetings, the town moderator and others who know the rules, please do a quick deep dive and see what is possible and what is not possible. You may have something written in the back of that, in your charter or whatever, that says, you have to wait 32 days before, and there must be 3 cows in the room. You just don't know. But it's just that kind of stuff, and it's true. So that was funny.
Great segue. We, through Fidel, ran this through our town clerk back at the beginning of December. And basically the select board will place the debt exclusion article on the April town meeting for 2025. The town meeting will approve the article hopefully on the third night of April town meeting. So that will be May 5th of 2025. And the town clerk will schedule a special election for June 2025. So what happens is our charter states that the votes don't take effect until 7 days after the close of town meeting. So if there's a 4th town meeting date, then it would be 7 days after that. And then the clerk gets 35 days notice before an election can be scheduled. So if you're assuming the town meeting doesn't end until May 8th, then we'll be able to schedule it at the end of June.
So May 8th plus 35 days, that's fine.
Yes.
Ed, is your hand up again, or is it just never gone down?
Well, yeah, it's never gone down. I still had a follow-up, but I think we've actually, my only question, April 30th, do they just do it is that just once a year, that April 30th date? Or is that something that they do, MSBA does, kind of throughout the year, and that's just our date where we're gonna target because?
The board meets every 2 months.
Okay, perfect.
So as Mike alluded to, it's not feasible to move it back to I guess February would be the previous one. That would be too abbreviated a schedule for the work that needs to be done. So if we wanted to move it, it could be June, but April 30th is just the date that fits. We can get all the work done.
Nope, that's perfect. Yep, that's perfect. And then does that, just after what Carla just went through, and I know you just got it now, does that change very much if our town vote is in June versus May?
No, that's perfect.
So Jenny, that 35 days kicks in after the 7 days after the last day of town meeting.
Got it.
So it's 7 days and 30, and I'll forward this to you.
One thing, Carla, that could happen is there could be a special town meeting within the town meeting to help make it go faster. So that special town meeting ends and then that starts the 35 days. So if there's any kind of issue, they could open a special town meeting within the town meeting, get it done sooner.
So we should look at a little bit of the specific detail like that, because what happens is, while we're waiting for the vote, Lee just alluded to it earlier, we don't want to lose schedule, we don't want to lose time, we want to let him get going. And unless we have some money available to give them like a little bridge to keep moving, they're kind of working at risk at that point. So we've got to kind of look at how we want to approach that, basically. If it's a shorter duration and they're working at risk and we feel like we're really solid on the vote, maybe they'd be willing to take that. But if it's a longer duration, it starts to get to be real money, and obviously we want to make sure that everybody's
The library did that because we needed to have approval so we could have the debt exclusion. So that's not uncommon. In fact, they've even done it outside of town meeting completely. It could be,
I was gonna say, does it have to be during those
No,
4 days
it
or
could be
can it be
any
prior to?
yeah.
So it
So you do
Makes-
special town meeting,
Special town meeting,
then 35 days after that, that's
Right.
a townwide vote.
right.
that's a good thing for us to get the right people in the room and have full on.
But it kind of, the schedule seems to work out pretty well with when you have your town meeting.
Yeah.
Especially if you do the special town meeting.
Right.
Within the town meeting.
Yeah, right, however
Two
that
hours.
works.
But if we can tweak it, right, if we can tweak it to save ourselves a couple months.
Yeah.
Right, that's
Yeah.
where it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds
think-
like, go ahead.
I do think that'll help too, Carla. I think, if we're building towards town meeting and then we're building momentum and then the town vote is not too long thereafter, I think that's a little bit of an elegant solution, and we're kind of coming to an inflection point at the right time. So I do think that exploring that, kind of special town meeting on the front end of our annual town meeting is probably the way to go. We probably just need to engage the right folks for that.
When is the town meeting?
Usually the third week approximately in April.
It's after the town election, which is usually what the first week in April. Although this year will be by a month.
I can get you the exact dates.
It's 2015 when we voted in the library, we had 5 town meetings that year, is that why?
That was what.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember why we had so many.
Yep.
Well, so much is predicated on working with the MSBA and keeping them in the loop. Is there anything else we want to talk about on this?
Just that this keeps us on track for the schedule that you have looked at before, which is a fall 2028 move-in, and then that starts then there's a phase of site demolition and site construction that presumably lasts for another year, but that there's a lot of unknowns here. That all assumes that this is as Lee says, a single phase project and fairly straightforward, which
and this is kind of assuming the new construction versus
Yeah.
new construction
right
versus
over.
renovation, right? Not phased, so
You can imagine how long
that
the
caveat.
structure it could be if it was room by room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that didn't really take into consideration, based on a new construction, that didn't take into consideration what would be a second phase to demolish.
That's the last.
Right, that's this last piece,
Okay.
the site
You're right,
demolition and
it's there.
construction for another year, perhaps.
Clearly,
Until
if
summer
we're gonna do a
2029.
new building on that site, we have to figure out how to do that. Build it on the same site at the same time.
Yeah.
And there may be, as we go forward, we'll look at partial temporary conditions and things like that, see if anything else is necessary.
Carla, town meeting, first day of town meeting, April 28th, 2025, May 1, May 5, May 8, 5/8.
Interesting. It's there.
So does that mean that the meeting within a meeting could happen on April 28th? Okay. And then plus.
What they do is they open up town meeting and then they'll adjourn it partially, then they'll open up the special town meeting, do that business and then end it. And and then they go back to.
Adjourn that's an NDA,
Yeah.
the special town. And meeting, you would need to.
I think that would work perfectly.
Well, let's see what happens. We are nothing if not flexible because anything can happen, but we try to plan.
Early June.
Okay. In order to have done this, many of you have seen Gantt charts, you know, you work with them constantly with the little lines and all of that. And we have those. But I can't read them. And the reason why is because there's so much going on in the next 3 or 4, 8 or more months. So many streams of work and so many meetings and connections and all of that, Jenny was awesome enough to help put this together. And while it looks crazy at first, I just want to, kind of talk about it in a certain way. You can see that it has the preliminary design program and the preferred schematic, and it pretty much takes us to schematic design. We have another page for schematic design, but in order to go, I was just, because I know that if I touch it, it probably moves. Right? So the idea here was to really look at, say, project charter, which is checking in with the, you know, the overall and always going back to the charter, which is one of the first things. A project charter just means what are your community's goals, real goals and priorities. And we do kind of come up with a list from all of this information at first, where we're trying to understand like a contract with you. What is really important to you? Is an EUI of 25 the most important? Does it have to look like the other buildings? Is it made out of brick? Like really important things. And that's what we're determining. We've met with the faculty, but then when we meet with all of you and the community, we're going to get different things, and that's fine. We've already, when we did the project charter, if you show up on Thursday, you'll see that we've separated it into community use, budget and money, you know, sustainability and energy, educational vision, different things like that, and different things that you saw in the proposal. And those already are these categories. But what's in those categories? That's for you to determine. And if you come up with a new category, great. That's why we're here. So we're doing that stuff really quick. So when you see green and green, green is community, right? Yeah. And the orange dots are look at that. Ooh, that is so good. The orange dots represent the SBC meetings. We typically have an SB, like meet with people, gather information and come to you and then show it to you. So this SBC meeting here is where before that, right?
Right.
The next one we would present to you and show what we've learned and have it collated and talk to you. And then before we go back out and give it to anybody, you will have responded to it and told us what is appropriate and what is not, because you are the fun arbiters here. You take that responsibility. Project charter is one line, which really is just in the beginning. Sustainability is the whole energy committee, hi, welcome, which you are on. And sustainability is first establishing goals, energy goals, but also other environmental sustainability goals. And then we'll meet after putting that together with the community. With you, and we'll talk about those goals and we'll modify them. Then we go to the community. This one's a little bit backwards. You don't go to the community and go, what are your energy goals? You know, they don't know yet. And we share that with them. You're going to see that sustainability happens every couple of months. There'll be a group here, a few of you, hopefully some people here as well, that are on that. And it really does progress from just ideas to working with our engineers and our energy consultants and really talking about systems and EUI and modeling on all those things. And we meet all the way through like that. Educational planning. This is a school and all these dots up front, that is Mike Parolo and us doing our educational visioning. And we're already setting it up with the principal and with Tom. And it's pretty intense, actually. It's a lot of work, but it's a real deep dive. And the MSBA really supports this. On all of these meetings represent, hey, on Wednesday, we're doing observation. On Thursday, we're going to visit schools. And, you know, we do all these and then sessions and workshops. Some of you may be involved in those. Those go through and then they become program, where we've come to you with some information and share the program. And MSBA has a program, but it won't be tailored to you. And then we just keep going back and forth. This whole, so you can see these lines that are happening before we get to you. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to make that work. The whole site thing is huge. Getting a survey done, getting a quick traffic study done and traffic recommendations, using the same person from Swampscott, where it was very complicated. And here, you just have chaos, not craziness. And, you know, with the 2 streets and the neighborhood. What we want to do is collect all this information and have kind of a sense of how we might go about it. And even understand some great stuff, because you put in the money for it. It was very smart. We're going to know so much. And then we're going to go to the community. And we're going to show them some information about them, but then we're going to ask them, what are your issues with the site and with safety and with the neighborhood? We're going to hear a lot of people from the neighborhood, I hope, tell us what's going on. And that's a very important community meeting. Then we meet with you and share back and forth, and we go back to them. Some of these things are really all about going back to them after we heard them. I'm going to use the word complain, but if I were a neighbor, that's what I would do. I would say that's a problem. They want us to be able to come back and say, we talked to the traffic engineer, we modified it, and this is what we think. What do you think of that? There's a lot of coming back. And then, so we have a whole kind of system of continuing to go back. Then we have design cost estimating, which we have the existing conditions, which leads to program. This is all us kind of internally, developing alternatives in here after we have a program. And then money, you know, you kind of do some, and it all lines up. Whenever you see something like there's an SBC meeting and you see these rings going through everything, this is me. I look at it like every time we show you something, we're going to show you quickly what we've already done and how it ties together so that you're always kind of looking at the whole. I hate to come in and say, we're just going to talk about site today and not say, but remember, we looked at this. Because you guys should always understand that we're doing all the pieces. And then we go through the PDP and the evaluation. So far, does this all make sense? It's kind of a crazy graphic. When you see something like the submittal of the PDP to the MSBA, look at all the review time till the acceptance of the it's like almost solid 2 months. During that 2 months, we don't stop. We're getting calls from them, we're getting comments, and they send stuff back. We have to come back to you and we go back and get some more narratives about education, things like that. We keep working, but we're going to keep evaluating alternatives. We're going to take those first square footage ones, and we're going to start looking at them as buildings, which, you know, in whatever format they are. And we're going to have narratives from all of our different consultants. We're going to really cost these things. And you'll be surprised at the level of detail that we like to go to for this level, because I think it's really hard to just say it's a 3-story box. It doesn't show too much. And I don't even think we can, if people are worried about scale and we're not really starting to understand how the program steps or does something, I don't think it's very helpful to anybody. So we go through and we do that again. And as you can see here, near the end of PDP, we're meeting over and over with you. The reason we're meeting over and over, and also with the site, with the community, see, we might come in and show you 5 alternatives and you go, do this, we don't like this, change this one. We want to maybe share that after we've shared it with you. We go to the community, get their feedback. Then we go away, come back, show it to you again. Here's 4 alternatives and they do this now. They go to the community, get their feedback, see how that works. And by following the bouncing ball and not being colorblind, unless you are, it's easy to kind of see the rhythm of what we're trying to do. We show you something, we go to the community, get their feedback, come back and forth. And by the end of all this, it should be beautiful. You will have chosen something that you believe in. You've been through the process. How did you get to the place where you knew that this was the right scheme, the right option? Everything kind of, it was the right balance of everything. Any questions about that? I know I wanted to show it to you because there's so much to do. And that's why we're meeting every 2 weeks. I am very grateful for your time. Because there's no other way to do it, probably.
Can we get the Gantt chart?
Everybody likes
You can, because you're probably like a good
Well,
friend.
blind, I can't do it.
So here's the thing, like this is, this may work for some people, and then the Gantt is awesome.
So Suzanne is actually working hand in hand with the LBA team. She actually has the Gantt chart. We don't have all the individual meetings and stuff like that. It's a little bit more broad strokes on that, but we have it all detailed out.
I was
This is more-
sort of kidding, but
Yeah.
not completely.
Well, no, what do you do for a living? Are you a builder?
Construction man.
Exactly. So you're gonna look at that and you're gonna say, that's my world. And you'll see it and you'll see the timeline and all that. This was important because each of these dots is kind of a meeting. You know, a very purposeful meeting, and it's really hard, it's more of a work than the schedule. So we can share all of it. That's pretty much it.
So when you see Suzanne's chart, there'll be a couple hundred lines. The construction's like one line. Like, it's just one big box, because we're detailing everything else. The CM is gonna be the one that's detailing, or the general contractor is the one that's detailing all that.
Any other questions?
Are some of you or most of you thinking of coming on Thursday night?
So,
Yeah.
Good.
I think it was a really good meeting. One of the things that kind of stuck out, I think one of the teachers said, I don't want to just tell you what I don't like, I want to tell you what I do like. And I think that's important with the community as well. Is there, tell us the problems, but also tell us what you like, because you might want to keep that going forward, that option going forward.
I don't mind the layout of the existing building, it just happens to be very old and one story. It's
And
very
has crickets.
intuitive and they like aspects of it.
Were there any other surprises?
I think the layout was probably the biggest one. I think there's a lot of information on the pages that we have to kind of go through and dissect a little bit, right?
Like the connectedness of the building, because when they walk in, they felt like they were connected. They felt like they could see. And that was important to them. They didn't want to just walk down small hallways. And they wanted community spaces outside of here's the first grade classrooms. They wanted to have a space where they could, have a meeting, or they wanted to be visible. If one needed to go to the bathroom, they wanted a teacher to be able to watch both classrooms. And they talked about, you broke it up into so many different areas with community and things like that.
We try not to quiz them too much in the beginning, because I think what we're trying to find out is what's unique about you. And we find out, we know what could happen, but we also try to be objective, be open-minded. Swampscott has a certain layout, and it's a good layout for Swampscott.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things they were talking about with the clusters, the neighborhoods and the different size thing, those were what they were probably talking about. But when we go visit schools on Thursday with the group, we're going to be there and we're going to listen to them point, see them point and listen to people comment, and we'll know even more. And it'll just build.
Okay, so moving on to, this is the last piece of our kind of share back of what we've been working on, is just the educational visioning work plan, which I'm not going to go through in detail. This is just to say we've developed a detailed work plan with our educational consultant and reviewed it with Tom and Lindsay, and we've started. We're on our way.
So
Yeah.
Thursday, you're doing tours of the existing schools?
Tours of new schools that have been set up by Mike Parolo for educational planner. And they are new schools that are MSBA schools that are elementary and really talk about layout and organization and how things are used so that people can see it in real life. So hard for everybody, especially faculty who have been working in an old building for so long, to imagine what anyone's even talking about. And then you go there and you say, oh my goodness, I didn't know you could do this. And it's good for everybody, really, to understand. You've probably visited schools and you have a sense, but some of them don't get to.
So we really haven't visited schools. So to Pat's point, we did talk about this at our last meeting. So how would we get the rest of the committee to be able to see some of these newer schools?
So I mean, we're doing it on Thursday. People are welcome. I don't think there's a limit.
What schools schools are you visiting on Thursday?
There's an elementary school in Ashland, one in Harvard, which I think Harvard was up in the air, right? Was it?
We have the final list I just sent out.
Smith Elementary.
In Danvers.
Yeah, so Mindus Elementary School in Ashland, Center Elementary in Tewksbury, and Smith Elementary in Danvers.
So the second one did change.
Now, these are Mike Barolo's choices right here. As I said to him today, Mike Carroll already had 2 or 3 others that he said, oh, that would be nice to visit. I have a couple in my mind, not that we did, that I like, that I've seen that I think could be helpful. They're always to elicit information from you. And there's we could do that if we all set up another meeting, somebody knows somebody at a school or 2 schools, we should just go and check them out. See what we learn and bring the right people though, so it's consistent. Obviously, you want to be there and some of your representatives.
Yeah, so we have 2 teacher representatives and 1 longstanding paraprofessional who are also coming.
Good.
For that buy-in piece with staff and other community members too.
So since there's interest and this really is about an educational building, you'll want to see them. And the way I look at it is, as long as we can give the information out, the more the merrier.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason why any committee members wanted to come on Thursday why you couldn't. I think we just need to let the schools know who's coming. Let me know.
This is good. It's a good thing.
So can we send out the schools and the addresses? If we can get them to Jackie, we can send them to the committee. And then if anybody's interested, we'll just get the information back.
Yep, I'll send you our schedule as well, because we have certain times that we're gonna be at each school.
I think for the educators especially, we were talking before, Lee and I, that sometimes, especially if you've been in that building for a while, you might be so focused on what you can do because of the building that you don't realize what other options there are. So letting them see these other buildings and how other people are doing it, it's like, oh, I never even thought that of being able to do something like that. You know, whether it's having the special ed breakout rooms or spaces, not even room spaces, in the community rather than walking, 3/4 of the way down the hallway to a small office or something like that.
We kept pushing them to think bigger. Like they were like, I want a sink and I want a storage cupboard, and they're like, more. So it's gonna take a little while.
Actually, that is what I said.
Yeah.
They were all standing in the pit and I said, this is to get general kind of ideas and vision. The first person here who mentions I want a sink, you have to leave.
And I think
They all left.
just visually, like, I haven't tallied the votes yet, but just visually looking at the things, like one of the most popular things was storage.
It always
So
will
it's
be.
hard to, and you need those things.
But you'd be surprised at, like AC, somebody mentioned, will it be air conditioned? 20 years ago, you'd never air condition a building like this, and now we air condition all of them. But the real reason for the air conditioning was not comfort of the teachers during the year, but can we use it in the summer? Which is a huge community goal. Why wouldn't you do that now that you can do that? And it used to be on the cutting block all the time, but now if it becomes part of the charter, like, a year-round building that's future ready and can be climate controlled, then all of a sudden that becomes a priority. And we plan for it, we budget for it. So that's how that works.
Ed has his hand up again.
No, he never puts it down.
Yep, no, I did put it down, Lee. I haven't been asleep. I've been paying attention. So just quick follow-up on, if it's possible, and I know, this, a lot of these visits are, for the educational, aspect of it, and those representatives are key. But if we can, when you start to get it, if you can just give us as much lead time as possible as far as when you're gonna do, something. I just know for my schedule, the more time I have, the better it is for me to be able to make myself available. So, that this is a little bit of a quick turnaround for me. So just, kind of as a placeholder if we can, to the extent that you can, just give us as much lead time as possible.
Let's think of it this way. Think of it as this one on Thursday, because it's educational visioning, is focused mainly at the planner getting information from educators. You can come, and there's not a lot of time, but come along. But then we'll have other visits as we go along over the next months to other places, so that you can just be totally involved in what it means to build a building and all of that as well. Does that make sense? Because we want to keep the educational planner moving with the right people, and then you guys are the flex.
The other part of it too, I think, Lee, a lot of times the educational meetings are kind of during the school day or during the workday. And you folks might want to be doing it more at, 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock, a little bit later in the day so that, but
Also, I don't think any of these schools are any of the green schools. So we would definitely, whether it's Saugus or somebody else around.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because once you've established your sustainability goals, and maybe that group wants to go to a certain school, that meet with the technical staff, like really understand like how it's operated and all of that. We can do anything.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, since nobody on this committee, this will be the first tour that anyone's done, to your point.
Okay.
None of us know, Wood End is 20 years old. I know what that school looks like, that's it.
Right.
They're also coming to Killam Wednesday to start watching what currently is happening and see further about the educational vision, which is
Observing.
great, yes. I think staff are excited about that piece too, to really feel like you guys know what it looks like day to day.
Just another quick follow-up if I can. And I know you probably talked about this in the beginning, but so that session that you're gonna have on Thursday with the educators, now is that like, as a committee, will we see kind of a debrief from that too, like just kind of something that's summarized, even if we're not able to attend, just so that I think it would be valuable for the committee members to have a good understanding, kind of finger on the pulse as far as what you're hearing from the education, staff and so forth. I just want, and Lee, this may be my not being able to do the links between the circles, but maybe that's, I just want to be able to make sure that we're, being able to see that, so we have a good understanding so that we can champion things on our side as well.
Well, certainly, under educational planning, there's an orange dot at the end of all the visioning on the third line down. Yeah, that one. And that one is to really go over all what we've learned and have a presentation of all the visioning, outcome of all the visioning. But even the one before that, if we learn a bunch of stuff, we have no trouble showing you any information and keeping you up to date.
Yeah, I think Ed was actually asking about the project charter meetings. So Ed, to that point, we'll come back at the next SBC meeting and we'll report back. It's exactly what you said, is like we'll go out and do some things and then we'll comment back and tell you exactly what we did and what we learned.
That's the Thursday thing, so.
Yeah.
And a second piece to that of feeding the committee with information is the working groups and the representatives here who will be working on certain groups to bring that information back to the committee. So it'll be like a twofold of information.
Really, our goal is for you to sit here, smile, and for us to bring things that we've already learned to you and have you react to it, not to come to you and say, what do you want us to do? And because you're very busy people, and that's our job.
Question, Carla, you and I were talking about this, the ones that are educational forums, anyone here could also attend?
That's a group, an invited group.
That's that 30 to 50 people.
That's an invited group that you guys put together, you and
But
Tom.
that would be another opportunity for being part of that visioning piece. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know who you have on that long list of 30, 40 people, but I'm sure there's a couple people from here.
Yeah.
That's part of what you were gonna do tonight.
Yeah.
And ask. Okay.
So
I
this
know
is,
it's on Tom's list this week, we were talking about this morning.
this is like the lightning speed you guys are going at of, like, oh, we have to get 2 meetings in, but, in January, and this was right before everybody went away for break, so we're just trying to catch up almost, so we're half a step behind.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
I
doing
just
great.
Fine.
No, I apologize for, I think we're, like you said, we're moving pretty fast here during the holiday, and part of the reason is to try to hit that April 30th board meeting, so
You
we're
know.
off with a bang.
Yep.
And I apologize if I left some people off some notifications.
No, you're doing great. We're trying to understand and just give you what you need and move along with you. Go ahead, you can finish.
Okay. Okay, so the last part here is just to tell us our next step. So this is like a 2-week look ahead, what we're gonna be doing for the next 2 weeks. So tomorrow we have the MSBA kickoff, which we talked about. We're starting the educational visioning, which we've been talking about. We're doing the shadowing at the Killam School. We're doing the school tours. And we're gonna be having our first visioning session, which is like I think they're meetings with different size groups of educators, different people from the educational community. On January 11th, we will have that second project charter meeting with the community. The week of January 15th, we will be starting our existing conditions assessments. So all the engineers, structural, HVAC, security, everyone's gonna be out at the school, opening all your electrical panels and assessing the condition of the systems. Then January 22nd, we'll have an SBC meeting where we'll report back on what we've learned about the project charter. That same week, we're working with Tom and Lindsay to schedule a follow-up community meeting. It's basically report back to the community what we learned from them and what we reported to you. And then January 23rd, weather permitting, with the site survey is scheduled to begin. And we will be having ongoing executive leadership team meetings on alternating weeks from SBC meetings. Although I don't have one on my schedule for next week.
Jackie just sent out an invite this.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, I think I got
It was for the,
Maybe send out a whole bunch of them.
so it's on the 16th
Oh, you're
Because-
right, I did get it.
10 a.m.
I did get it.
because of MLK Day on Monday.
Yes.
So it's at 10.
I think the most important thing is we were able to change the name of it from a scrum meeting. Executive leadership.
Just I think Adele and I were the only two who were really excited about the Scrum. But sometimes you have to grow up.
You like that?
I read these.
Hey, Carl, a quick question. Who's on the ELT? Who represents that piece of it, if you could? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I probably know, I'm probably, you already told us, if I can get it.
It's actually the next item on our agenda, Ed.
I knew that. I was just testing.
So we're done.
You done?
Yep.
We're done.
Good job, Ed, pushing us along.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Everybody good? Any questions? Perfect. So now we're gonna talk about the three initial, at least, working groups. And the educational leadership team, sustainability and communications. And I kind of grilled them to get as much information as I could to present it back to this group. Certainly anybody interested in this group who'd like to be on those committees are more than welcome to. The educational working group, the members of that team currently, Tom Milichewski, Lindsay, so the superintendent, the Killam principal, Joe Huggins, our head of facilities, and then we have three people, teachers, paraprofessionals from Killam who are on that, in that group. So, and they have started, right? They're working with a special consultant, moving that piece forward. So that's one group that we can have additional people involved in. We have a sustainability group. The sustainability group is to meet once a month for the rest of the year and then quarterly for the second year. So one
Approximately. Yeah.
Right, approximately. It's typically around 8 people, 2 from the designer end, so there's one of the designers, the energy consultant, and an MEP. And around 6 people from the district. So who was suggested for that group was superintendent, so Tom Milichewski, Joe Huggins, facilities again. And then if there's interest from any members in this group to be on it. I have a feeling there's probably gonna be a few, right? And then RMLD, potentially climate advisory committee, somebody from there, or if there's somebody in the community who's really interested and would like to be on it. So
If there's that community group that has established itself as having a voice in town, that person is very welcome.
We now have a net zero plan group that has been kicked off. And those are community members, and the climate advisory committee is our standing committee.
So
So there's a little overlap, not a ton.
if there's a person who's on both or something like that, just somebody who can bring in the information from those and go back and say they're listening. If we're listening.
okay, so and then and we're gonna circle back to all 3 of these. The communications group, we have it that they'll meet every 2 weeks. Who was recommended for that by the designer was superintendent, Lindsay again. And the person who knows a lot of people was the definition of the third person who should be on that.
That's what I said.
So,
The glue. I mean, at first, communications is really about principal communicating with families, somebody showing up at the building. You don't want to be embarrassed and have people in an uproar because things are happening, they don't know about it. That kind of communication. There's a meeting coming up, those kinds of things. Very important to project functionality and transparency. Eventually, after a few months, it starts to morph more into outward engagement, further engagement, but then also the parent groups, people who come in and talk like that. And especially where the people who are connected know a lot of people, know anybody like that, that kind of are there. But it's kind of it's a little bit of a pain at first because you're really just keeping the website up and the information flowing, and you're starting to think strategically. So it's important.
and we will, I'm not gonna put Susanna on the spot at the moment, but supposedly she got some information today from 2 web designers, so we can start getting that process going as well. And obviously that person will be part of that team too. So
Can I ask a question about the communications committee? I'm thinking there's a couple of layers, the way you just described it, because certainly as the Killam community gets engaged and all those neighbors over there, you know, that's one aspect of it. And then there's the broader, let's make sure the community continues to support this and feel like they are engaged and show up to vote for it in town meeting. And so I don't know how that works.
So the one of the tricks there is if somebody might eventually, I'll say, chair the vote yes for Killam committee, you don't want them on the communication committee because then that kind of excludes them from being able to do it. So you want their friend to be on, you know, or then to know somebody that's on the committee. So there's gonna be a communication there, but if they're gonna be helping lead that charge, that vote yes, you don't want them necessarily on a public committee because that kind of creates conflict of interest.
For this committee here, we're talking about the communications of the project. The yes for Reading, the yes for Killam committee is going to be separate. We can help them with giving them any information they need, but technically nobody from this committee can be pushing for the yes for Reading.
And it's not that hard because even if some of you are advocates for the project, you just don't say vote yes. You say, we need we've done this research and this work and we need new educational rooms. We need these spaces. The old building is in bad shape. We need something new. The site is, you know.
I can say I'm gonna vote yes.
It's just
I just can't tell you to vote yes.
So, and then I have to say, I talked to town council a little bit about that. So, elected officials have little restrictions. So Carla and I, we have, it's the rest of the select board, school committee, we don't really have restrictions with town, advocating for town warrant articles, debt exclusions, anything. But it does get a little trickier for people in appointed committee positions. The question I have, and we can go back, is right now there are no town warrants before us and there are no votes and elections before us. So at what point, because the MSBA wants us advocating for this project. And so at what point, and we can ask, what point do you have to start being careful? Members of the finance committee have to start being careful, members of the building committee.
I think, like Tanya just said, is you can advocate, you just can't tell people to vote yes. So you can say, I'm gonna vote yes, I think we need this building, I think Reading needs this building, it has to be done. You just can't tell them to vote yes, like.
Because I mean, it's gonna be really clear as you get closer to the vote that you're gonna go to the finance committee, they're gonna vote on it.
Mhm.
And they're gonna vote unanimously, we've done this, to support, recommend, no, seriously, to recommend this project go forward after doing your due diligence. And then you're gonna go to the select board and you're gonna get there, you're gonna get all these town groups to support it, because if you don't go through that process, because everybody wants to see that checklist, well, the finance committee was behind it, it must be responsible. And so they will all have given their sign off, which basically they're saying this is responsible.
So I still think, you know, you can't wear once we have a warrant article, you can't, or once we have a vote, sounds like you can't wear a pin that says, you know, vote for this on this day. That's very, very specific. But I don't want to feel like our
Actually,
committee members can't really be very vocal advocates. And nobody, at this point, nobody is saying you need to vote for this.
Well, so I'll give you an example. I just did this in Whitman. They just went for their vote. And we had multiple community meetings where we explained the project. We just didn't talk about voting or not voting. So we had meetings with the staff. We had meetings with the community. We went to the senior center and we had a meeting because typically that senior vote is that vote that everybody says is against schools. Well, I'll tell you right now, in that town, once they heard it, once they understood it, they were advocating more so than maybe the non-senior group, you know? So, yeah, so I think getting the message out there is important. It's just when you have that vote yes group, I'll say nobody in this room can be on that vote yes group.
Okay.
There's gonna be a little pile of money somewhere of people making yard signs and doing different things. But when they actually have the group where they ask questions, the superintendent is gonna be up there front and center talking about education. You're gonna talk about the condition of the kids in the school and all of these things, you're all gonna have your story to tell.
A lot of times the leaders of that vote yes group come to this meeting every week. Once it's established, they come because they want to know what's going on. They want to be able to tell everybody else the latest and the greatest and you know, they want to be informed. So you might see that down the line.
We've already started a lot of communication as well as talking with neighbors. I think it's just figuring out who is that other person that, to your point, that I can say, hey, I just sent this out, can you pass this on to that committee?
I'm kind of figuring it's coming from the population.
Yeah, and preschool, we've talked a lot to people who are having kids come up or just houses in Reading. In different groups.
One of the things that's gonna be interesting is when you get past the families, which are gonna ask you questions. And you start having neighbors who say, what's gonna happen to my road and the sidewalk, blah, 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 who's taking care of this, and then, you know. And they're asking those kinds of very pointed questions about their place. And fortunately, at first they probably come to you, because no one else knows who to take them. It's not really a school issue. It's really this committee and what we're working on. And we can help you craft things. So there's going to be that kind of community outreach in that way that is very delicate and straightforward and transparent.
And Tom's put it out the last month to the whole district on the newsletter, so that's been helpful. Right,
So again, then I guess you can come back to us and let us know when this group exists. Okay, good.
Okay, so from what I've gathered so far, and everybody chirp in, please. Sustainability, Greg's interested, Karen, Nancy.
Yep.
I suspect John could.
I would think
John
John.
Kuhn, yeah, he's the one who asked about.
There's your full, there's four of you, right? There's four.
Let me just ask you a question on that. How many voting members are there? 9. Got it, sorry. As long as we don't have 5,
Right, yeah.
then
Yeah.
we don't want to have a quorum
A quorum within
within a subcommittee.
Right,
So
and
putting
then
meetings.
we already, and Bill's not a voting member of this committee, he's
Right.
Garrett, like.
Yeah. That's why I said
So he
voting
doesn't
members,
count,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. So, but like if we have
And neither's Tom.
the 4 of you and then Carla showed up at the meeting, then that would be a 5th, and we would actually have a quorum.
Right.
But I also recommend that we have Joe or his lieutenant coming to the sustainability meeting, facilities.
Joe Huggins.
Joe's on it,
Oh, yeah,
and Tom's on it.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tom, Joe, Greg, Karen, Nancy, John, Bill.
And somebody from town, or yeah.
Yeah,
and then-
so somebody from, is there a person from the climate committee?
Yeah,
that's
yeah, we
local?
can get one.
So if you can come with another rep, that would be great. Great, thank you.
Molly wrote in the chat, she would also like to be in the sustainability committee.
So that's 2 from Melanie.
So these things, we're setting them up. They can change. There will be, you know what? Mistakes will be made. And people will say, oops, we messed up on that. We didn't do that right. Or somebody's gonna make a mistake and not tell somebody about something.
No, we're not doing
And what'll happen is we'll overcome it and we'll keep going.
Yes.
And I just know that's how it really works. And you probably know that how it really works too. We're all very non-judgmental here. But the idea is that this can all develop, because this is new. And we'll just gonna go through it, and by the time we're done, we'll have figured it out. And then it'll be over.
I'm the next.
Isn't that funny?
Just like that'll be 2028.
Okay, so we'll get that one more group, add in Molly. Okay, for the education working group. Anybody? You don't have, no, you don't,
I think that that's already been established, right, by Tom and Lindsay.
right. I might jump in there. I can ask Sarah, I'll ask Sarah as well. Sarah wants to jump in, just,
she's on, we sent invites today, she's gonna come to the one she can. She's gonna try on Thursday as well, to come to some of her folks.
okay.
We can move her in. Her or Jen. Size.
And then communications. Any interest?
I mean, I'm happy to help. I just think, like I said, it's good to be updated and to be able to come back to the executive committee and this committee, but it seems like some of this communication would be handled through this group and through staff versus.
Well,
And to that end, we were asked, what groups do you normally do? These are three that we've seen. I've seen others with more groups. I've seen others that don't have these. So if we decide we don't need an official communication committee after a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever, we can always revisit that.
Well, I was gonna say, well, if I may, while we have the two finance folks on the phone and Ed, I have seen some other school projects have finance committees. Finance subcommittees,
Subgroup.
yeah, subgroups, especially where we're talking about big grants, lots of grant issues, figuring this out. And maybe not now, or maybe for a certain part of the project, but I
would
thinking about
say when we
that.
get to that PDP and we're starting to talk
Okay.
dollars, that might be what I would recommend doing that.
You know what it might
Because
be?
it is important, but I think until we have something to start talking about.
What it may end up being called, the ELT group there, there's usually some kind of core group. When we start getting into options where we're looking at money and we start to like do value engineering and really going back and forth, and you want the right people on that, but there's gonna be kind of I'd say like there's a project management group in a way almost with the facilities and looking at the building, and that might find its way, give a max or something, find its way into the actual building and the fees and all of that. So we'll just allow that to happen. There certainly are people here who have different skill sets who can help out on all those, and they will be recruited, even if they're trying to back off.
And I don't mind helping on the communication side of it as well.
Yeah,
There's a lot of strategy in that.
So Carl, I was gonna, I can, I'm happy to raise my hand for the communications piece too. And Karen, don't go starting finance meetings just yet. Let's take Lee's lead on this. It's too soon.
Carla, on the town side, I'm happy to help with all your communication.
Thank you.
That's what I do.
I think that's what
Oh,
it
it's
is.
procurement.
It's really about going in and saying what's gotta happen, and all of you are connected in some different way. So you each have your little role. That's great. Thank you.
The website for the project will be hosted outside of the town. Correct.
That's the intent right now, yes.
Okay, and who will manage that? Is it
I think we may have an agenda item on that tonight, but I'll say it's either us internally or us through maybe a sub-consultant is where we're leading right now.
We're working through that piece of it.
more to come?
Yeah. We can dive into that at the end of the meeting. But I do have some proposals to show if you would like.
Do you want to get into that? I think that it's probably a good time now.
That's the other question.
The ELT?
Ed was asking who's on the ELT.
So Ed, so for the executive leadership team who's meeting every other week, so it's Karen and I, and it's Matt and Tom. And then it's the designer, the OPM, and we have Lindsay, and we have Joe currently. And I'm imagining as we kind of go through things, if we have to pull other people in, but it's just trying to like, you almost feel like you're drinking from a water hose when they first start, and you're just trying to give them the information they need. And then hopefully we have our act together by the time we have to come to this committee to explain it. That's how I felt like this today's meeting went. It's almost like our prep for this meeting.
And you guys had that earlier today or last week or?
We had it last week, and we'll have it next week. And then
So it's offset, is that what you guys said earlier?
yeah, we're gonna try and do it every Monday, every other Monday, opposite of these meetings.
Gotcha, perfect. And now is that, sorry to ask the question here, Carla. So is that something, can I just ask if there's something that like that's gonna come out of that ELT meeting, right? Is that the same acronym as the education one too?
It's unfortunately the exact same.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so yeah. The
And they sound like
EX,
Scrum.
instead of the EdLT, it's the XLT. Out of that executive leadership committee.
Yes.
if it's possible, and I think it would just be helpful for us on this committee, that if there's anything that, like, if you could send an update to us, just so that we have it ahead of that, just if there's something that we need to digest, I think it would just be helpful on that side, not to create a lot of extra work. I just, I think, again, I'm just, there's a lot of speed and efficiencies that I think we're gonna try to create, and I think, if we could have a product that kind of comes out of those that we can digest, I think will make all of our meetings a little bit easier.
So I think the goal, like what happened last week, was we discussed things and then we had to pull together the packet, right? We had a couple of days to pull together the packet. Jackie's been great about trying to get it out on Thursday. She wants the information Thursday morning, so Thursday afternoon, if you have it Thursday afternoon, at least you have Thursday and Friday, so you don't have to use the weekend and then Monday to try and digest it. I totally understand what you're saying. It's
I'm just a slow reader. It just takes me
know.
longer.
I know, we get 150-page school committee packets, 24 hours sometimes in advance. It's hard to take it all in. But yeah, we'll be mindful and thoughtful of that too.
Thanks, Carla.
Yeah.
So now it's gonna be the XLT,
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be the XLT.
extra large.
Great. Going back to Scrum. All right, Susanna, do you want to talk about websites?
Sure. So we got two proposals. One is from Boston Web Designers and one is Mandel Web Design. And then we just compared that to, what we could do internally. So I'll just share my screen. Can everyone see my
Yes.
screen? Okay, great. So I just broke it down, so we can get as close to an apples to apples comparison. So on this row, we have the cost for just initial setup creation of the website, which, we have our different lump sum fees. And then we have website hosting, which is just a requirement of creating a website. It's where you store all your information onto a cloud-based server. And the prices vary just based on which hosting service you use. And then the monthly updates, which we just estimated right now about 8 hours a month. And we asked for each company's hourly rate. Another option that we have is also social media that we can add on, where it's the two big differences between Boston Web Designers and Mandel is that with Boston Web Designers, they only do the creation of your social media pages or integration, but they will not, they won't monitor it. They won't have someone where they'll, let's say, post things on the regular on the social media pages, or really engage or collect comments or questions or answers. Whereas with Mandel Web Design, they do offer that type of service. So overall, I can also show you their proposals. So I would say Boston Web
Bottom
Design.
lines, which one was the biggest one?
Okay.
What were those bottom lines on those three
Ours was
options?
actually probably the most expensive, I think.
Yeah.
Mandel's was the least expensive.
So what, and so what's yours? Did I see 41, 47?
Seems like,
41, 29, 27.
seems like the most apples to apples comparison though is line 12. Because the social media, like what they're proposing to do is totally different.
Yeah.
Could you just
So-
slow that up a little bit?
Can
So
you
I think that.
zoom out, zoom it up a little bit?
That's 30.
Sure.
Thank you.
32, 28, and 15.
I see. And
Right.
and the really interesting thing about the two on the right is that one of them is the hourly rate is clearly being done by a senior person.
Right.
And the hourly rate on the right is being done by a very different person at $81 an hour. I mean, the difference there is like dramatic.
And I think the Boston Web, Susanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 175 was just an average of their 150 to 200, right?
Correct. So Boston Web Designers is a much larger company compared to Mandial. Mandial, the person that would be working on it is the founder, is Greg Mandial. So that is the reason for the much lower hourly rate. And he did mention, so his hourly rate is actually $95 an hour, but he was willing to package and give us a 15% discount if we have like a monthly setup for
Do
his.
you feel like you get a very different level of service and attention from this one person versus a company?
That is a good question. I definitely felt when talking to both, they were both excited. I would say Boston Web Designers kind of jumped out a little bit more to me because they are familiar with the MSBA process. The person that I spoke to, James Kennedy, he is also the founder of the company. He used to be a FF&E tech consultant. So he's very familiar with the whole construction process. I explained to him about how we can only provide unbiased informational content, right, on these websites, and he completely understood that. And then he also mentioned that he has a connection who could help us with the Say Yes for Killam campaign, which would be completely separate, but he does have that connection there, which would be beneficial if that is something that we wanted as well later on.
So Susanna, with Boston Web Design, they have a larger group. We could potentially go back and ask them to confirm the rate for that person who would be doing the updates, and maybe we could get a little bit lower rate, but I don't think it's going to compare to the $81 an hour.
Yes, correct.
Has anyone looked at both companies' websites that they've done to compare? Do they stand out as one is better than the other?
I think that's maybe the next step, is to try and look at those and maybe share those with you folks so that you
Yeah,
can
that'd
take a
be
look
great.
at them.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Ed, you had a question?
Yeah, Susanna, thanks for this upfront. This is awesome. So 2 questions, just on that last point about Yes for Killam.
Mhm.
Was James saying that like helping them with their web design, or he knew someone that could help within Reading? I was just kind of curious on that one, like what you meant by that piece.
He knows somebody who specializes in helping towns campaign.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, not specific to Reading, just in general. Okay.
Correct.
So my other question is that on the double bullet or the double star for Mandial, how important is that monitoring, posting, and engagement piece like for what we do, versus only creation?
Well, I mean,
Sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say that, sorry, Suzanne. The idea of creating the overall website is all great, but the truth is you want to feed it every week with the right information. You want to have somebody you're gonna send it to and look at posting. And I don't know about engagement, but in terms of keeping it up to date, there's nothing worse than a website that doesn't talk to you every week.
Specifically about the social media, I think.
You
You're
think
gonna
so?
build us some like awesome
Yeah,
3D scale
But
models.
monitoring and posting
Right?
is just.
Yeah, the conversation is just about social media, but I think your thoughts also apply to social media. We want to, if we think that's the way we need to communicate, with the community, what's going on the project, then we, you know, if we're gonna consider Boston web designers, we need to solve that piece either internally or, ask them to solve it somehow. You set up the social media platforms and no one's feeding that.
And
So
so
no one's feeding that,
schools in
monitoring
town
it.
have social media platforms, can this firm create the content and forward it so it can be posted on channels that people are already following? Like, do we need new channels? I mean, a question for that community.
And I think that's the question. I think, you know, I think the idea here, and Susanna can probably speak more, but this would be potentially having a Twitter account or a, you know, Killam Twitter account or a Killam Facebook page or an Instagram account or, you know, things like that, that would be tied to that.
For example, there's gonna be a time,
We already have a lot of social media and people do comment on it weekly, but I manage that. It's just figuring out who to set up.
So
And I do the towns.
So as they're doing the weekly updates, say, like the 2 hours, I'm sorry, the 8 hours a month was figuring a couple hours a week to, you know, we get some new renderings in, we get a new model in, we have meeting minutes that we want to put up there, whatever. That every, you know, couple hours, you know, every Friday afternoon it's updated or something like that. And I think after it's updated, then if you've already got, maybe it's just a matter of kind of clicking, you know, adding a link in to the website, because that was one of the other things we talked about. Is you don't want to upload a document to Facebook and then upload to Twitter and then upload to the website and then realize, oh, we have to modify that document next week. And now we have to make sure we don't, you know, we're getting it at all the, it's better to have it in one location, potentially at the website, and having the others pointing back to it.
yeah, there'll be a link and by the way, you know, so there'll be a point in a few months, right? Where you send out a card and it says, learn more about sustainability at Killam Elementary School. And there'll be a QR code there. And you do the QR code and it takes you to the website and it doesn't say vote yes, it's just all information. And that's how, I mean, that's about as technical as I get.
I view it as if I had to make a decision right now, I'd say I want a website. I'm not, you know, the social media piece of it, you know, all the information's gonna be on the website. You know, if we have these avenues already to just keep pointing to the website, I'm good with that. I don't think we need to hire somebody for $750 a month to, you know, to send out a few tweets and, you know, update a Facebook page. We can find some.
You get a thrill share license, like there's many platforms that connect all of them in one. Like I used to use it at my previous school and I would type something out, attach the picture that went to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook all at once too. It's probably a lot cheaper than a license.
So Carla, I feel the exact opposite. I think I think for this, it's that important that I don't want to leave anything to chance, and I wanted to get out as much as possible anywhere that someone can see it, and have it kind of point back. And if it's cohesive, and I think that only serves us well at the end of the day. Just it's too important to leave anything to chance, as it relates to that. So that's my, you know, kind of one thought on that piece.
So I also have on the screen, this is what was in the proposal, you know, which is 4 posts per week, captions, graphics, scheduling, a little bit of engagement. And what he did mention was an ad or ads in general, which actually was a little bit enlightening, because what he mentioned was if there's just a web page and it's hard to get people to look at it, but he mentioned that he can actually target, you know, people in the town. Of course, if this is not what you want to do, I get it, but you can target specific groups of people, you know, depending on who you'd like to target. But that was definitely something that was very interesting that we might possibly consider as well.
Carla, Derek had a question.
Derek, do you have a question?
Hold on.
Hi, sorry, no question. Just, I was looking at the bottom line number for managing that social media and webpage. You know, it'd be nice to have people come to our RPS pages regularly, and we do have a facilities page. And if it were prudent possible to direct people to that web page and have updates posted as regularly as we wish, might be a solution that we'd wish to explore.
I think that was part of the idea here, is even though this is being hosted outside, that the district web pages could have links to it and the town web pages could have links to it, so that if you don't know to go to the Killam webpage, but you go to the town webpage, that you can still find your way there.
And this, yes, for Killam Group would link to it, so
Yeah.
like everybody.
Yeah.
But we get a little help making sure that it's current and up to date and looks good.
So I take it there'd be analytics, right? That'd show us the number of hits or number of times people visited the pages and then what they were clicking on and how long they spent on it. And then we could evaluate going forward whether or not it were worthwhile to maintain a separate item.
You done this before?
I do this every day. So I think that this is something that the communications group should probably take a deeper dive into, because I'm concerned about messaging getting fractured. I'm concerned, so it's like, it's getting partially posted here and it's partially posted there. I'm concerned about building an audience for a third party that hasn't been doing this for, the years that we have and has the organic growth that the established channels already have. And I think the established channels should be working with it. So I don't have an answer or recommendation, but I definitely think it deserves a lot more conversation about how to approach it among the people that are going to be doing some of that work. And engagement, so Lindsay, Tom, whoever's managing RPS, social media, my team, for more information. Just because there's a lot of there. The ad spend is interesting. I think it's interesting. We recently did an ad spend in our town, and we had responses from Seattle, Florida for snowplow operations. And so I have a problem with Meta and their and how they target people. So, there's a lot of there for social media. Website stuff, right?
So can I suggest, Susanna, that you get more information on the social media piece of it from both companies? And then we'll get it to our communications team. They can kind of sift through it and then maybe make a recommendation to this group.
Sure. Yes, I can definitely ask about that.
Thank you. Does that sound good? Like a
Yeah.
good plan for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thanks for that information. Anything else before we get to? That's. Everybody need a minute, or are you good with that? Looking at them.
Good to move to accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, we're gonna take a roll call vote. Ed?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Pat?
I'm gonna abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. Greg?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carla? Yes. And it passes. Thank you. And then we will move on to for future agenda items. The next meeting, we will vote on our amendments. Possibly we will have, probably won't, but if we have an update from communications group, you just let me know, we'll get on the agenda. Who sets up that? Communication? Yes, whoever you appoint as your chair. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah. We can start getting.
Quick question, procedurally, do we need to vote on the amendments if they're already executed?
I don't think we really need to, but.
Because what if we vote against it?
So what we've done before.
Not that we would, but I just, from a mechanics perspective, is there any reason to?
What I've done before is we've actually typically, maybe a little bit later in the process, we actually ask if there's an individual that on behalf of the committee under a certain dollar value, if you will, so we can keep things moving along, especially when we get the contractor on board. And when we do that process, if that individual had approved something in between meetings, then you vote an acknowledgement. You don't vote yes or no, you just vote an acknowledgement of it. So you can't vote no.
So
It
that we
just,
saw it.
it's just that way there is the committee supporting that decision, basically.
That's a good clarification. So we'll
So
vote
it's an
that,
acknowledgement, not approval.
right. It's like we did when we were voting for these guys to kind of vote for the MSBA's approval. It was more of like an acknowledgement. Great. I'll entertain one more motion
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
and we'll do roll call. Ed?
Yes.
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Karen? Yes. Carla, yes. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks, Carla.
Thank
Good night,
you.
good night.
All right.
Thanks, Susanna.